Welcome to our class. This week we will begin learning how to use the structured query language commonly referred to as SQL or SQL. The SQL commands can be organized into different categories. Last week we looked at creating a table and a database that was done using the create command. There are other commands related enable us to rename, drop, which is delete, database objects such as a table also. We learned that they can be accessed in PHP under the Operations tab for the object that is selected in the left-hand navigation pane. This week we will look at the select statement. The select statement is part of what is called the data manipulation language category, and it exists in conjunction with the insert, update, and delete statements. We will look at those three next week. The select statement is used to query the database. When I talk about querying, I mean to ask a question of the database. This is the most commonly used SQL command there is. So the select statement queries the database. Essentially, it asks a question and it will return a result set as a non-persistent table. A result set is a group of records. If they are found, it is possible that there may not be any records based on our select statement. A select statement can be executed on one table or on more than one table. This is an example of a query in a web page. Here we see Amazon, and if I were to ask it to show me all the products relating to the term SQL, essentially I am querying their backend database. And in the URL, you can actually see my keyword. That is sending a command to the server. The server is querying the database and it is returning multiple records. The values from the fields in those records are inserted into the web page in a template. So how are queries executed? In order to execute an SQL query, you first need to log into that server where the database resides, and then the server needs to authenticate that you have permissions to access it. Then we need to open a connection to the database. That same connection will stay open until we're finished, and then we will close it. Then we can execute the SQL statement. We will learn how to do this in the future. Every time we execute an SQL query in our PHP code, the same process goes over and over. Do you have permission to execute it? Do you have permission to access the data? Is your SQL syntax correct? Once these have determined to be true, the query is sent to the optimizer in the engine to determine the best way to execute it. So this is an example of a result set. And last week we looked at the Browse tab in PHP So if I were to select in my left-hand column a table and click the Browse button, or when you just select that table, it automatically takes you into the Browse view, it will show you all of the records. Behind the scenes, that is executing an SQL query. And what we are saying select asterisk, which stands for all, meaning all records from the name of the table, which is scholarships. And this is what PHP is doing. We can actually code these queries in PHP which is how you learn how to write the correct queries for putting them in your PHP code later. So here you see it returns a result set. When we select the table to the left and PHP executes the SQL statement, if there are no records, it will tell us that. And if there is no data in your table at that time, or based on the SQL query, if there are no records that match that query, an empty result set will be returned. So it is possible to have an empty result set. And notice the path up here in the top. It shows you the database, and then it shows you the table. So the select statement is the most commonly used SQL command, and it returns a result set of 0 or more rows or records from one or more table. We will later learn how to join tables in an SQL query. The select statement is used with the from clause. We have to identify the name of the table. You don't necessarily have to identify the database name, because when you are connecting to that database, the connection is for that specific database. So the syntax for a typical basic SQL select statement: select what, in this case it's the asterisk or all, from, and where, the name of the table. So we have a statement, what we're selecting, the clause from, you always have to have that from, where or what table, and because this is a statement, it does end in a semicolon. So just showing you again the SQL select statement, you need to specify the name of the table, you need to use the from clause, and select asterisk all. It will return all of the records from that table as a result set. You can also select a particular field name. Suppose we were only concerned with showing the names of the organizations who gave scholarships in the scholarships table. We can narrow down our select statement. Rather than using the asterisk, we can specify a field name. So here in our SQL statement, we have select organizations from scholarships. Notice the way this statement is written. Your SQL statements and clauses should always be uppercase. Technically, it doesn't matter. However, this is the standard. The names of the fields and the tables need to be spelled the same way, or it's not going to work. However, the database knows those names. Therefore, they do not need to be in quotations. PHP MyAdmin puts quotes around them, and I really recommend deleting those quotes. It just causes problems in the future. You can also select multiple field names from a table, and it will return the result set that only includes those fields. So supposing we wanted to see the names of the organizations and the amounts of the scholarship that they were awarding. We might not care about the rest of the data in the table. We only want to see this. So here we have our select, the first field name, organizations, comma, the second field name, from, the name of the table, scholarships. And by the way, PHP MyAdmin has a very nice user interface that allows you to do this in a GUI fashion, which is covered in another video. So if this returns a non-persistent table, this is not a physical hard-coded table. This table is generated from a query, which is why we use a database. It is much more efficient to query a table than it is to have millions of tables with repetitive data. We also have a where clause. The where allows you to specify the row or rows to be returned based on a condition or conditions. So you might want to think of it as a way to filter the rows. The where clause is also used with deletes and updates. The where clause can be used to compare the value of the field to a given string as a test for the value as a condition being equal or not equal, and we also can specify a condition using the and or operators. So these are some of the operators that can be used with the where clause. These are our comparison operators. We can say where a field is equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal, less than, equal. Granted, these would have to be numeric fields, such as money. We also can use these keywords: between, like, in, is null, limit, with the where clause. So we have different operators that work with the where clause in order to further refine our query. So back to basics. Select all, which is the asterisk, returns all the records from a table as a result set. If you only wanted to select one field and return all the records with the value of that field, you would use select, the name of the field, from the name of the table. And here we are selecting all of the organizations from the scholarships table, and it will return a result set of all of the names of the organization. So all of the values for that field name in every record will be returned, and notice it tells you also the number of records being returned. We can select more than one field, and the field names are comma separated. Here again, you do not need to have quotations around them. That is something PHP MyAdmin does, and when I write my SQL, I take those quotes out. So here we are returning a result set that is showing the name of the organization and the amount of the scholarship for every record in this table. Again, it tells us the number of rows being returned. Let's look at an example of using the where clause. And in this case, we're looking to find an exact match, so we will use the equal operator. In our SQL statement, we are selecting three fields. We want to see the organization, comma, the amount, comma, and the semester from the scholarships table where the semester equals fall. If you recall, in this table, we have two values in semester, fall and spring. If we only wanted to see scholarships that were offered in the fall, we could execute this query, and it will return a result set showing us these three fields where this condition is true. There are several wildcards that can be used with the where clause. You can match exactly one character. The percent will match any number of characters, and there are other string expressions available. So let's take an example of using the percent sign. In our SQL statement, we have the select all from scholarships, where organization, and we're using like. So like is a match or similar. It's not equal. Equal is exact. This is like, and because we have a string expression, it needs to be in quotations. So we have like San Diego percent. What this is going to return, it's going to return every organization that begins with San Diego, and it will uses that wildcard to say it doesn't matter how many characters are after San Diego, we will return a match on them. And in this case, we are returning a result set, as you can see, of three records. Each of them, the organization begins with San Diego. It has other things after it. So this is the like. Now, let me just talk about these quotations again. This is why I personally think it's a good idea to get rid of the quotes around your field names and your table names, because when you need to use a string literal in an SQL query, your literals have to be quoted. Your field names do not need to be quoted. Your table names do not need to be quoted. This is something PHP MyAdmin is doing, and it gets very complicated after a while because you have to pull this whole thing into your PHP code, and that whole thing has to be in a quote. So you're managing in and out of quotes all the time. So this is why I recommend getting rid of them in PHP admin, MyAdmin, when you don't need them. We also can use not like with the where clause. So here in this very similar SQL statement, we are querying the scholarships where the organization is not like San Diego. So everything that does not have the word San Diego in it at the beginning will be returned in this result set. Let's take a look at using the select statement with the where clause and comparison operators. Supposing we wanted to see all of the scholarships that were $750 or more, we could easily execute a command, select all from scholarships, which is our table, where the amount, which is the field name, is greater than or equal to 750. Numbers are interpreted for face value. They do not need quotations. The only thing that would need a quotation is a string literal. And this would return a result set that matches this SQL statement. Any scholarship amount, any year, any semester, $750 or more. I would also like to point out, when a result set is returned, it is always sorted in ascending order based on the primary key. Notice we said select all, it's returning the ID, which is the primary key, and it's in ascending order. This is the way the default is called a sort order, that your result set, and the result set is nothing more than a table, is always returned. Okay, supposing we wanted to see a range. Supposing we wanted to see all the scholarships that are between $500 and $750. We can use the keyword between and with the where clause. So here we have select all from scholarships, where amount, which is the field we're querying on, between 500 and 750. Notice the syntax. This is SQL, not English. Notice that for whatever reasons, PHP is not uppercasing the word between and the word and. However, I recommend that you put it in there because it looks better to be consistent in your casing with your SQL words. You can also query on two separate fields. Supposing we wanted to see all of the scholarships where the amount was exactly equal to $500 and the semester is the spring. So all scholarships in the spring semester that are $500. So here's our SQL statement. We have select all because it's going to return all of the fields from the table scholarships where the where is putting a filter or a criteria on this field, where the field, which is amount, equals $500 and the semester is spring. So similar to a programming language, when you have an and, the condition on the left and the condition on the right has to be true. You can also have an or. Similar to a programming language, one of the conditions would be true. And you can have compounds. You can have ands and ors and ands and ors, and in that case you need to use parentheses to make sure that it's executing the way you want. I talked earlier about the default ordering system. By default, the rows are ordered ascending according to the primary key. Based on the way that we write our select statement, if the primary key was not involved, they would still be, if the primary key was not part of the result set, they would still be in the order based on the primary key. Therefore, we have the ability to order by a certain field name. And in this example, we are ordering by the amount. Usually when you want to ask a question that has to do with money, you generally want to see either low to high or high to low. So here in our SQL statement, we're selecting three fields: the organization, the amount, and the semester. We're using the from clause from the scholarships table, the where clause, where the semester equals fall. We only want to see the fall semesters. and we are ordering them by the amount. That way we can scan easily to see the different semesters and how many are for different amounts. You can also order by two fields. So you have what might be considered a primary and secondary sort field. Where the second sort would come in, it will come in when the primary sort returns similar values, and then you can, within those similar values, sort them. So if you look at our SQL statement, select three fields, organization, amount, semester, from the scholarships table, where the semester is fall. We're ordering by the amount first, that is our primary sorting order. We're going to go from low to high because it defaults to ascending. Then we're going to sort by the organization. So if you look at what we have here in our results set, there are three scholarships for $500. Now, if we did not sort that on a secondary sort by organization, they would go in the default order of the primary key. The three $500 would still be together, but they would not necessarily be in alphabetical order. It looks a lot nicer on the left here that they are in alphabetical order. We have the same thing happening with the 750. They are also in alphabetical order. And at the bottom in the 1000, they are in alphabetical order, ascending. That is our secondary sort. You can also order by descending. All that is adding the DESC after the keyword. By default, it is ASC, so you really don't need to put it there. We also can use the limit clause to limit the number of records being returned. So supposing we only wanted to return 10 records, select all from scholarships, limit 10. Here again, limit should be capitalized. 10 is a number, it does not need quotes around it. It will only return 10 records. You can also use regular expressions, which are a pattern matching technology with SQL. So these are some common patterns that could be used. And here we would see the syntax in which that would occur. We have our where clause, where the organization, regular expression, $C would mean it begins with the letter C. In the second select statement, where organization, award dollar means it's at the end. It would mean that that word is at the end of the organization. So these are other ways of refining characteristics or filters on a field value. When we return a result set, the column names are identical to the column names in the database. And that might not be so user-friendly. You might want to have a different column name. And you can do this using the as keyword. The as keyword is an alias as a column name. So supposing we wanted to show just the amounts of the scholarships. In the SQL, we would need to say select amount from scholarships, and it would return a result set with the word amount as the column heading. And that doesn't really say a whole lot if you were printing that out to give it to someone. So you might want it to say scholarship amounts. So how that would happen, you would say select amount as, here again, it should be uppercase, scholarship amounts. And then the rest of the query is here. Notice this nice long query. From scholarships, where the semester equals fall and the year equals 2015. And notice that PHP quoted 2015. I do not believe that you need to have that there.